Hello, friends. Today's story is not about easy romance or unbroken dreams. It is about love tested by fire, loss that shatters the soul, and a devotion so deep it defies despair, family pressure, and even fate itself. This is the tale of a man who chose his wounded wife over everything, and how, in the quiet strength of their bond, they found a miracle they never expected. Now, let us journey back to where it all began. The town rested quietly at the edge of the endless plains, where the sun set each evening in fierce shades of orange and crimson, and the wind whispered old songs through tall prairie grass. It was a small community, native families who had walked these lands for generations, blended with settlers seeking new lives. Everyone knew each other's names, their joys and their quiet sorrows. Secrets drifted like smoke, but love, when it came, burned bright. His name was Kyle, a strong native man from the nearby tribe, tall, steady, with calloused hands and quiet wisdom. He rose before dawn, prayed to the ancestors, then rode out to tend the herds. He helped others without asking, shared what he had, and carried his people's history without complaint. In the town's heart stood Lyra's modest shop, inherited from her parents. The only daughter, she ran it alone after their passing, arranging sage bundles, woven cloths, honey jars, and medicinal roots with gentle care. Children loved her rock candy. Elders lingered for stories. But inside, Lyra felt the ache of an unfinished life. Beautiful, kind, yet lonely. Kyle first saw her on an autumn morning. He came for supplies. Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them. Visits grew frequent, small gifts, shared stories of stars and seasons. Love bloomed slowly, like wildflowers after rain. But Wren, from Kyle's tribe, watched with burning jealousy. To him, Lyra was a prize. The rivalry simmered unseen. One golden evening, Kyle asked her to walk with him always. She said yes. The wedding was set. But the plains teach that even the clearest sky can turn. The full moon rose, heavy and silver, over the plains, bathing the town in soft, glowing light. The wedding day had arrived. Women from both families gathered early at Lyra's small home, behind the shop, filling the air with laughter and the scent of sage smoke. They braided Lyra's long hair with red beads and tiny feathers, draped her in a dress of soft buckskin, and woven cotton dyed deep indigo, embroidered with patterns of stars and rivers, symbols of enduring love and flowing life. Every stitch spoke of hope. Lyra's hands trembled only a little as she touched the delicate fringes. Her heart felt full, almost too full to hold. Outside, under the wide sky near the old cottonwood tree, the people assembled in a wide circle. Elders stood at the center, drums in hand. Kyle waited there, dressed in his finest, a beaded vest, eagle feather in his hair, face painted with simple lines of ochre and white. His eyes never left the path where Lyra would come. When she appeared, walking slowly between two aunts, the drums began, slow, steady, like the heartbeat of the earth itself. She reached him, and the world narrowed to just the two of them. The elders spoke ancient words of union, of two lives becoming one fire, two rivers joining the same sea. Kyle took her hands. "I promise to walk beside you in every season," he said, voice low and sure. Lyra's answer came soft but clear. "And I promise to hold your heart as my own, always." Rings of braided horsehair were slipped onto fingers. The drums rose louder, joyful. The circle erupted in cheers, songs, and laughter. Music night fell. Fires crackled, meat roasted, children danced. Kyle and Lyra moved among the people, hands never far apart. Later, they slipped away to their new home, a simple cabin Kyle had built, on the edge of town, fresh with the smell of pine and hope. Inside, they closed the door. The world outside faded. Kyle drew her close, kissed her gently, whispering, "This is only the beginning." For a few perfect hours, joy felt unbreakable. But on the far side of the firelight, Ren watched from the shadows, face hard, fists clenched. The flame of jealousy burned hotter than any wedding bonfire. The celebration had quieted. Embers glowed red in the feast fires. Voices faded into sleepy murmurs across the town. Inside their new cabin, Kyle and Lyra sat close by the hearth. The room smelled of fresh pine and the faint sweetness of wedding flowers. Kyle traced the beads in her hair, whispering promises of tomorrow. Lyra rested her head on his shoulder, feeling the steady beat of his heart. For the first time in years, the loneliness inside her was gone. Then came the crackle, sharp, unnatural. A low roar followed. Smoke seeped under the door, like dark fingers. Kyle was on his feet in an instant. "Fire!" he shouted, pulling Lyra up. Flames already licked the outer walls, hungry and fast. Someone had soaked the dry timber in oil. The blaze spread with terrifying speed. Kyle kicked the door open. Heat slammed into them like a wall. Outside, shadows moved, figures running away into the night. Ren's work, though no one would dare say it aloud yet. Kale wrapped his arm around Lyra, dragging her through the choking smoke. Beams groaned overhead. A burning rafter fell, crashing near them. Lyra screamed as sparks burned her arm. Kyle shielded her body with his own, coughing violently. They stumbled into the cool night air, just as the roof collapsed behind them in a roar of flame and sparks. Townspeople rushed with buckets, shouting, but it was too late. The cabin was lost. Kyle dropped to his knees, pulling Lyra close. Her dress was scorched, her face streaked with soot. She tried to stand, but her right leg buckled. Pain shot through her like lightning. Her right hand hung limp, fingers unresponsive. She looked at Kyle with wide, terrified eyes. "I can't feel it," she whispered. Help arrived, elders, neighbors, but the damage was done. As dawn broke gray and heavy, the doctor knelt beside her on the grass. His face was grim. "Burns are deep, nerves are damaged. She may never walk again. And the damage inside?" He shook his head. "She will never carry a child." Lyra's world tilted. The future she had glimpsed only hours ago, gone in smoke. Tears cut tracks through the ash on her face. Kyle held her tighter, his own voice breaking. "We'll fight this," he said. But the words felt small against the ruin around them. Dawn came pale and cold. The town still smelled of wet ash and charred pine. Lyra lay on a blanket spread over the grass, surrounded by neighbors who had brought water, cloths, and whatever comfort they could. Her right arm rested useless at her side, fingers curled like wilted leaves. Her right leg lay heavy, numb below the knee. Pain throbbed in waves, but the deeper ache was in her chest. The doctor, an older man with kind but tired eyes, knelt again, after examining her more closely. Kyle stood beside him, face streaked with soot, hands clenched. The doctor spoke quietly, as though the words themselves were heavy. "The burns are severe. The fire damaged the nerves deeply. She may regain some feeling in time. But walking? I fear it is unlikely. Her hand will remain mostly paralyzed." He paused, glancing at Lyra's pale face. "And the internal injuries from the fall and heat. The womb has been scarred beyond repair. She will never carry a child. I am sorry." The world seemed to stop. Lyra's breath caught in a sharp gasp. She stared at the sky, unblinking, as if the blue above could somehow undo what had been said. Tears slid silently from the corners of her eyes, tracing clean paths through the ash on her cheeks. Children. A home filled with little voices. laughter echoing off the walls. All of it gone. In one night, the future she had dared to dream had burned away. Kyle dropped to his knees beside her, taking her good hand. His voice cracked. "Lyra, we're still here. Oh, we still have each other." But she pulled away slightly, turning her face. "What kind of life is this?" she whispered. "I wanted to give you sons and daughters. I wanted to run through the grass with them. Now, I'm nothing. Broken. Useless." The word useless hung between them like smoke. Cale's eyes filled with pain. He leaned close, forehead touching hers. "You are not nothing. You are my wife, my heart. We will find a way through this darkness, together. I promise you that." But as the sun climbed higher, Lyra's gaze remained distant. In her mind, the dream of motherhood replayed over and over, each time ending in flames. She wanted to die. Not loudly, not dramatically, just to slip away quietly, so Cale could be free of the burden she had become. Cale sensed it. He held her tighter, refusing to let go. The town watched in heavy silence, but no one could reach the quiet war raging inside her. Weeks bled into months. The burned cabin was cleared away, leaving only a dark scar on the earth. Kyle and Lyra moved into a small borrowed room at the edge of town. Simple walls, a single window, a hearth that never quite warmed the chill inside. Every morning before the sun rose, Kyle lifted Lyra from the bed with careful strength. He had learned her body's new limits, how her right side sagged, how pain flared if he moved too quickly. He bathed her with warm water, scented with lavender from her own shop stock, dressed her in soft clothes, and carried her to a wooden chair he had carved himself, wide, steady, with arms for support. He cooked simple meals, corn porridge with honey, stewed roots, fresh bread when he could trade for flour, feeding her slowly when her hands shook too much. He spoke constantly, filling the silence she could not bear. Stories of his childhood hunts, tribal legends of stars who were once people. Songs hummed low, so she could feel the vibration in her chest. In the afternoons, when the pain eased, he wheeled her outside. The chair bumped over uneven ground, but he never complained. He took her to the riverbank to watch water sparkle, to meadows where wildflowers still bloomed despite the season. "Feel the wind," he would say. "It's the same wind that carried our ancestors." Lyra tried. She forced small smiles when children ran past, laughing. She listened to his stories, nodded when he asked if she wanted more tea. Outwardly, she grew stronger, her good hand steadier, her voice clearer. But inside, the wound festered. Every night, when Cale slept beside her, she stared into the dark. The dream of children haunted her, tiny hands reaching, little feet running through grass. Now only emptiness. She felt like a shadow of the woman he had married, useless, a burden. The word echoed louder than any fire. Kyle saw the distance in her eyes. He held her closer, whispered, "We are still us." But the months stretched on, and the silence between them grew heavier than words. A full year had passed since the fire. The seasons had turned. Winter snows melted into spring rains. Summer heat baked the plains, and now autumn leaves drifted gold and red across the grass. Kyle's devotion never wavered. He still lifted Lyra each morning, wheeled her to the river's edge, spoke to her of hope, even when her eyes grew distant. The town had grown used to seeing them, the strong native man pushing his silent wife, both marked by the same night of flames. But time does not heal everything, and whispers began to grow louder in the tribal circles. One evening, as the sky turned deep indigo, Cale's family gathered at the elder's lodge. The air was thick with pipe smoke and the scent of roasted corn. Elders sat in a semicircle, faces lined with years and wisdom. Kyle's uncle, a broad-shouldered man named Torin, spoke first. Kyle, you have honored your vows. No one questions your heart. But a man needs more than memories. You need sons to carry your name, daughters to weave the future. How long will you carry this burden alone? Another elder nodded. The tribe needs strong bloodlines. Lyra is changed. She cannot give you children. The Creator has closed that door. Marry again. Take a second wife who can bear heirs. It is our way when one path ends. The words landed like stones. Kyle sat rigid, fists tight on his knees. She is my wife, he said quietly. Not a burden, not a path that ended. I chose her, fire or no fire. But the pressure mounted. Voices rose gently but firmly. Think of your future. Think of the children waiting to be born. She would understand. She loves you enough to want you free. Unseen in the shadows outside the lodge, Lyra had been wheeled close by a kind neighbor. She heard every word. Her good hand gripped the arm of the chair until her knuckles whitened. Tears fell hot and silent. They were right, she thought. She was holding him back. She was the chain around his life. That night, back in their small room, Lyra stared at the fire. The decision formed slowly, painfully. She would set him free, even if it broke her completely. The fire in their small room burned low that night, casting long shadows across the walls. Lyra sat in her chair by the hearth, blanket pulled tight around her shoulders. Her good hand twisted the edge of the fabric until the threads frayed. Kyle knelt before her, eyes searching her face, sensing the storm inside her. She spoke first, voice barely above a whisper. Kyle, I heard them tonight. Your uncle, the elders, they're right. Tears gathered, but she forced them back. I can't give you children. I can't walk beside you in the fields. I can't even hold our future in my arms. Every day you carry me. You carry my brokenness too. It's not fair. Kyle started to speak, but she shook her head. Please, let me finish. Her breath trembled. I love you too much to chain you here. You deserve a full life. Sons to teach the old ways, daughters to dance under the stars. Marry again. Find someone whole. I'll fade quietly. The town will understand. You'll be free. The words tore from her, like a wound reopening. She looked away, unable to meet his gaze. Go, please. Don't waste your years on me. I'll be all right. Alone. Silence stretched, heavy as stone. Then Kyle reached out, gently turning her face back to his. His eyes shone with unshed tears, but his voice was steady, fierce. No. He took both her hands, one strong, one limp, in his own. I didn't marry you for children. I married you because you are my home. Because your laugh once filled the emptiness in me. Because even now in the quiet, your heart is still the bravest thing I know. He leaned closer. I don't want another. I want you. Fire, pain, silence. None of it changes that. My love isn't a bargain. It's true. Without you, I'm the one who's broken. Lyra's tears fell freely now. She shook her head, whispering, But the tribe can speak, Kyle said quietly. But they don't live our life. I do. And I choose you. Always. The pressure from the elders would not stop. Whispers became louder calls. Kyle felt the walls closing in. He looked at Lyra, then at the small room that had become their prison of pity. A decision formed in his chest, hard and certain. The pressure from the tribe grew heavier each day. Whispers turned to open suggestions. Eyes followed Kyle with pity and judgment. He could no longer bear it, not for himself, but for Lyra. She deserved peace, not constant reminders of what she lacked. One quiet evening, as stars began to pierce the sky, Cale made his choice. He packed light: blankets, cooking pots, dried meat, Lyra's favorite herbs from the shop, a few tools, and the small carved chair he had made. No one was told. In the dark hours before dawn, he lifted Lyra gently into a sturdy wagon he had borrowed from a trusted friend. She looked up at him, eyes wide with confusion and fear. "Where are we going?" she whispered. Kyle kissed her forehead. "Somewhere the voices can't reach us, somewhere we can breathe." The journey took 2 days, slow over uneven trails, past the last scattered homesteads, deeper into the rolling hills, until the plains gave way to a hidden valley. Green slopes cradled a clear river. Wildflowers bloomed in patches of sunlight. Cottonwood trees stood sentinel along the banks. No roads led here, only deer paths and the memory of old hunting grounds Cale had known since boyhood. He found a sheltered spot near the water, where the ground was flat enough for the chair, and began building. He raised a simple cabin of logs and mud, roofed with thatch. Inside, he spread soft furs for a bed, hung dried sage to ward off the chill, and carved a wide window to let in the light. When it was finished, he carried Lyra across the threshold, as he had on their wedding night. "This is ours," he said softly. "No elders, no pity, just us." The first night, they sat by a small fire. The river sang nearby. Crickets answered the stars. For the first time in a year, Lyra felt the tightness in her chest ease a little. No one would come knocking with advice. No eyes would judge her broken body. Kyle sat close, holding her good hand. "Here," he said, "we start again." In the quiet of the valley, away from the world's harsh words, their life began to feel possible once more. The valley seasons turned slowly, like pages in a quiet book. Spring brought wildflowers carpeting the slopes, in purple and gold. Summer filled the air with the hum of bees and the scent of sun-warmed grass. Autumn painted the cottonwoods in flame. Winter wrapped everything in soft snow. Through it all, Cale's devotion remained steady as the river that ran beside their cabin. Each morning he woke before dawn, kindled the fire, prepared breakfast, warm oats with dried berries, herbal tea from Lyra's stores. He lifted her to the chair, washed her gently, dressed her in layers against the chill or heat. Then came the day's quiet rhythm. He worked the small garden he had planted, tended the few goats they kept for milk, chopped wood with rhythmic swings. But never did he leave her side for long. He wheeled her to the riverbank, to watch fish dart in the shallows, to a meadow where deer grazed at dusk, to a high spot where the valley opened like a hand offering its beauty. Most days he took her to the hidden clearing, where village children from nearby homesteads sometimes played, laughing, chasing, building small forts of sticks. He positioned her chair in the shade of a tree, close enough to hear their joy, but far enough for privacy. "Listen," he would say softly. "That sound, it's life." He never spoke of what she had lost. He simply let her borrow the happiness of others, hoping it would fill the hollow place inside her. Lyra smiled more now, real smiles that reached her eyes for moments at a time. She learned to use her good hand to hold a cup, to stroke the goat's soft ears, to trace patterns in the dirt. At night, by the fire, they talked of small things, the way the stars looked brighter here, the song a bird sang at dawn, dreams they still dared to whisper. Kyle held her close, his arms a shield against the world. Yet deep inside, the sorrow lingered, a quiet ache she hid behind gratitude. She loved him fiercely, but the question remained, was this enough? Kyle sensed it, in the way her gaze sometimes drifted to the horizon. He never pushed. He simply stayed, patient, present, loving her exactly as she was. The valley lay hushed under a late autumn sky, heavy clouds rolling in from the north. Night fell early, bringing a cold, driving rain that drummed hard against the cabin roof. Inside, the fire crackled low. Kyle sat mending a harness by lamplight. Lyra rested nearby, wrapped in blankets, her gaze lost in the flames. The year had softened some edges, but the quiet ache in her chest remained, a shadow that never fully lifted. Then came the knock, faint at first, almost swallowed by the storm. Kyle paused, ears straining. It came again, sharper, desperate. He rose quickly, pulling on his coat, and opened the door. Wind rushed in, carrying sheets of rain. A woman stood on the threshold, young, drenched, shivering violently. In her arms she cradled a tiny bundle wrapped in soaked cloth. The baby's weak cries cut through the night. The woman's face was pale, eyes wide with fear and exhaustion. "Please," she gasped, voice breaking. "Save her. My daughter. She'll die without you. Take her. Raise her. I can't anymore." Before Cale could speak, the woman swayed. She thrust the baby into his arms, then collapsed to her knees in the mud. Cale caught her shoulders, but her eyes were already dimming. "Promise me," she whispered. Then she was gone, life slipping away in the cold rain. Kyle stood frozen for a heartbeat, the tiny girl crying against his chest. He lifted her close, shielding her from the storm, and stepped back inside, kicking the door shut. The warmth of the cabin enveloped them. He unwrapped the wet cloth carefully. A baby girl, no more than a few weeks old, skin pale but breathing, tiny fists waving in protest. Lyra stared from her chair view, eyes wide with shock. "Kyle?" Her voice trembled. He crossed the room, knelt, and gently placed the baby in Lyra's good arm. The child's cries quieted almost at once, as if recognizing safety. Lyra looked down at the small face, tears welling. Her good hand hovered, then touched the baby's cheek, soft, warm, alive. In that moment, something cracked open inside her, a door she thought had been sealed forever. The storm passed by morning, leaving the valley washed clean and sparkling. The tiny baby girl slept in Lyra's arms, her breathing soft and even. Lyra had not moved all night, afraid to shift, afraid this fragile gift might vanish like a dream. Kyle watched from across the room, eyes shining with quiet wonder. They named her Alara, after the brightest star that had appeared each night during their darkest year. Kyle found goat's milk in a small clay pot, warmed it carefully, and helped Lyra feed her with a soft cloth, dipped and dripped. The baby latched hungrily, tiny hands grasping at Lyra's fingers. Lyra's good hand trembled as she held her close. Tears fell onto the blanket. "She's real," she whispered. "She's here." Days turned to weeks. Lyra learned the rhythm of motherhood in small, sacred moments. The way Ilara's eyes followed the firelight, the soft coos when Lyra sang the old lullabies her mother once sang to her, the warmth of the baby against her chest. She could not walk to the cradle, but Cale brought it beside her chair. She could not use both hands, but her good one stroked Ilara's downy head with endless tenderness. The ache that had lived inside her for so long began to ease, not gone, but quieter, as if the space once empty was slowly filling with light. Kyle watched it all with a heart too full for words. He built a small sling so Lyra could carry Ilara against her chest while he pushed the chair outside. They sat by the river, the baby's tiny fist curled around Lyra's finger. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Lyra looked at Kyle and said, voice steady for the first time in years, "I thought love had left me empty. But look, she's here. We're here." Kyle knelt, kissed her forehead, then the baby's, I told you, he said softly, not to lose hope. Life gives when we least expect it. In the valley's gentle embrace, a family was born, not from blood alone, but from devotion, loss, and the quiet miracle of a stranger's final act of trust. Time in the valley flowed like the river, steady, gentle, carrying them forward. Ilara grew quickly, first smiles, then crawling on the soft furs, then tiny steps holding Kale's finger. Lyra watched every moment, with a heart that had learned to hold both joy and memory without breaking. She could not chase her daughter across the grass, but she could sing to her, rock her in her arms, teach her the names of stars and the feel of river stones. Kyle built a small swing from an old cottonwood branch. He pushed Ilara, while Lyra watched from her chair, laughter mingling with the wind. Their home, filled with the sounds of new life, coos turning to words, footsteps, questions about the world. After 2 years, they decided to return, not because the valley had lost its peace, but because Ilara deserved to know her people, her roots. They packed the wagon once more and traveled back to the town at the edge of the plains. The first sight of the familiar cottonwood tree brought a rush of memory, the wedding, the fire, the sorrow. But this time, they arrived not as broken souls, but as a family. The town had changed little, yet everything felt different. People stopped in the streets, eyes widening. Whispers followed them. Kyle and Lyra, and the child? Elders gathered, faces softening with surprise. Kyle's uncle Torin approached slowly, gaze dropping to Ilara in Lyra's lap. She's yours? He asked quietly. Kyle nodded. She came to us in the storm. A mother's final gift. We raised her as our own. Lyra looked up, its voice calm and strong. She is ours, in every way that matters. The judgment that once pressed on them melted away, like frost in sunlight. No one spoke of burdens or bloodlines now. They saw only love, fierce, patient, unbroken. The tribe welcomed them back with quiet respect. Ren's name was rarely mentioned. Time and the land had claimed their own justice. Years passed. Ilara grew into a bright, curious girl, dark hair braided with feathers, running through the grass, helping in the rebuilt shop. Lyra opened again. She learned the old songs from Kale, the gentle ways of healing from Lyra. The family lived simply but fully. Hands held under stars, stories told by firelight, laughter echoing where silence once reigned. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in gold and violet, Kyle and Lyra stood together beneath the same cottonwood tree where their journey had begun in joy and ended in flames. Ilara played nearby, chasing fireflies. Kyle took Lyra's good hand. I once thought love could be taken by fire, he said softly. But you showed me it endures. Lyra smiled through tears, and you showed me it can heal what was lost. Love does not always arrive in perfection. Sometimes it walks through fire and loss, growing stronger in the ashes. Kyle gave her unwavering presence when the world turned away. Lyra gave him trust in her darkest hour. Together, they proved that family is not only born. It is chosen, nurtured, and sometimes gifted by fate itself. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that hope can rise from ruin, and true devotion can change destinies, please like, subscribe, share, and comment. Your support keeps these stories alive. Until the next journey, friends, remember, love, when given sincerely and without condition, has the power to rewrite even the darkest fate.